thank you for joining me. So I guess that, the thing we're talking about is mental fitness for sports officials. We have athletes, they have sports psychologists, they train on the mental side of their game. Coaches train on their mental side of the game, but sports officials don't as much. So why do you think that that's mental fitness for sports officials is an important aspect of their game?
I think it can make or break an official as far as how far they want to take their career and how good they can be. I believe there's training for the physical, the calls, make sure you know mechanics. But I think the mental side is what, in my career, what separates, or maybe as from a coach's perspective, what separates in my mind, maybe a good official, a just average official, or one that you walk in and you go, oh no. And I think it's not necessarily the calls that they make. I think it's how they carry themselves. I think it's how they handle. There is going to be interaction, and if some people call that conflict, but there's going to be interaction within a game. And I think how you handle that allows you to free your mind and focus on the task at hand.
So, we're talking about that a little bit. So what qualities then, you talked about, you see an official walk in, the way they carry themselves. So are there specific qualities that you want to see in an official to actually be doing your games?
Well, what I like is, they have to be competent, but obviously they wouldn't be doing games at this level. But, I think the confidence, but not cockiness. And I think there's a definite difference, but I think, you want someone that, and sometimes it's posture. I don't want someone meek and mild, because then I think I can run over them, and then I can try to influence their calls. And I don't really enjoy doing that. And I don't respect that out of myself or them. So I think just that confidence in a call, I think there's body mannerisms with it. Not the nervous, jittery, just the game, any sports. And this is why I love sports. There's the human element to all sports. And there are mistakes that will be made by everybody that's participating in the event. And when it's not a great call, or a coach doesn't feel it's a great call, sometimes just go, yeah, coach, at my angle, I thought that, but I'll keep watching that, and not to engage in a long conversation, but the confidence to speak to coaches. I think that's a confidence piece. I think when you're not confident, or maybe it's arrogance, you don't want to speak to coaches, but just a little bit of that, and not too much. But I really respect that. I respect sometimes when, officials say, man, I really messed that call up, or I didn't get that one right. What am I going to say? Okay. Hey, all right, I'll try to do better. I'm not going to argue with that,
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So tell me, from a coaching standpoint, how would you approach a referee then that is maybe mentally fit, that you perceive as mentally fit, versus a referee or an official that's not mentally fit?
One that's mentally fit, I honestly let them call the game. And it doesn't mean that I won't disagree. It doesn't mean that maybe I won't argue something here and there, but they're out of my mind. I know they're a part of the game, but they're not something I focus on. Sometimes when there's an official that I don't think is mentally fit, whether it's my confidence or not, I'm like, hey, you got to watch this, or what about this? And, maybe it's stop nitpicking, because I don't think they're maybe paying attention, and, or I want to get them to pay attention to this versus that. But I think the mentally fit ones, they're still conversation, but it's totally different conversation.
So do you think that in those cases, like, gamesmanship plays a role?
Absolutely. And we all need to be better at it. And I think coaches, and I'm saying that as a coach, and I'm going to tell you, you can be at a game and go, I thought you just said this, and now you acted like that. I'm like, I know, I'm not perfect either, but I think it does make a difference. I think gamesmanship, I think we do that back and forth. And I think sometimes as coaches, we're always trying to find any advantage we can. And if I think there's an advantage of, remind an official to watch 3 seconds in the lane, or hand check, or this, I'm going to do that. The officials that maybe are very good officials, not just physically in their calls and their mechanics, but that mental fitness, sometimes it's just that quick reminder of, hey, are you going to call that hand check tonight or not? And they might go, yeah, they're not doing it enough. And I'm like, okay, And you just, or, you know, they might say, no, but good try. You know, like some of them that I've known, and I know that makes a difference in years and experience or something like that. Like someone will turn and be like, really, are you going to start that already? I'm like, yeah, just got to, you know, I have to, you know, I've had fun with officials. One time I yelled at an official that I've known for a long time, and they just looked at me. I'm like, well, my players aren't listening to me tonight, so I'm glad that you are, you know, but I think you can have fun with that within the game as well.
I think that's great. Yeah. And so, and that's another thing, another coach brought up to me, that, you know, that like respect and relationships and experience, that, you know, all that plays a role. And do you think that does for you with officials as well? You know, that.
Yeah, we're all more comfortable with people maybe that we've seen before and know. But I think the other thing, as a coach and as an educator, you know, there is always new officials coming in, and we need new officials. I mean, it's part of the officiating. Is a tough gig to get into, and sometimes because of the mental abuse that they go through, some people just can't handle it. And, you know, so you want more volume of things. And I like seeing the mix of, you know, older officials with younger officials, and maybe I shouldn't say older and younger, maybe it's just, you know, the newbies on the block. But, you know, as long as they're making strong calls and things like that, I don't have any problem with it. I do at times will bait people a little bit to see what their interaction will be, just to know if I can talk to them or not. And there's some officials where they don't want to talk to you at all, and they might be good, but I'm like, that's not an official I'd want to see again. You know, they're not there. There's no interaction. That difference between confidence and arrogance, I just think it's a fine line for officials, and you got to find that line, and it may change game to game, and it may change from coach to coach.
So now, so you've said, you know, several things about the type of official. So in your opinion, what do you think is the number one, or maybe the number one and the number two, like, assets or qualities in official that you like the most? Is it that communication factor? Is it, you know, somebody who's confident, not arrogant? Is it somebody who handles stress well? You know, is it somebody who seems to be motivated and is working hard? Like what are those factors? What are those couple factors that are the most important?
You just hit them all that I really like. But I think, you know, I'll throw in, when someone makes calls and they make a strong call, not a good or bad call, it could be a bad call, but a strong call, and they do it with confidence, I can live with that. Then you can, you know, that's the piece that I really like. I like confident calls. I like strong calls, because I think that kind of gives that message off, kind of like, hey, don't mess with me. I got this game under control. And I love that. And then the other piece is maybe just the ability to communicate. Not long dialogues, short snippet dialogues. I don't want to sit and have a, you know, 2-minute conversation and argue, but just a little bit of dialogue here and there, because sometimes coaches have questions about, hey, what? And like, no, she got her before she got in the lane. I'm like, oh, okay, got it. That's what you saw, you know? But the strong calls, I think, helps in projecting to players on the court and to projecting to coaches, you know, that I'm good. I know what I'm doing. And it's just that strong call with the whistle, the mechanics. I think all of that helps with body language.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's also, it helps you believe in that official as well. If they're confident in their calls, and they may be wrong, they may be 100% wrong, but as long as they're confident, you know, you're going to get the best out of them. And I think that's really important. And, you know, so we've, you know, talked about that a little bit. What about communication with players? What are your thoughts of the way the officials communicate with your players? And is it important to communicate with their players, or should they be, or, you know, sometimes officials go too far? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. And that's, you know what, I don't mind a little bit of communication, but there are times where I think officials have tried to communicate too much with them, and it's distracting. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to communicate with my player. What are you, if you've got an issue with what they're doing or how they're doing it, you know, let me know. But that's it. And that's a fine line too, because I do think officials, when they communicate in snippets to players, that's a positive thing too, because it just gives a flow of how the game's going to be called. Because, you know, in basketball and other sports, I mean, sometimes it's a little bit more physical. Sometimes it's not as physical. You know, it might be, you know, and sometimes they let you play. Sometimes they don't let you play. They keep it tight. But the consistency is what everyone needs. So the little bit of communication with, you know, sometimes it might be an official saying, hey, get out of that lane. You're in that lane a little long or whatever. And then if they do it again, maybe it's pushing that 3 seconds where it's not quite 3 seconds. And it's, so just a little bit of communication, but not overboard.
And I think some of the things you're talking about is being able to referee in the spirit of the game as well. So communicating with the players, talking about that, maybe pushing that 3 seconds, maybe, so really reading and understanding that part of the game, which I think is really important. But, and going through that, right? So sometimes, referees have and officials have the stress of making a call in a split second, right? You don't have any time to react. You don't have any time to think. You just have to make that call. And making an incorrect call is sometimes the number one stressor, because then comes the abuse by the fans and the coaches. And, how do you handle that situation as a coach when you see an official in that situation? And from your opinion, how do you prepare your players, yourself, and maybe how can officials prepare for being in that situation?
Well, I think officials have a tough job, and with the rules that we're put in and what they're supposed to watch and everything, I can't do it. I couldn't do it. I can't see it all. I can't, I'm going to make my call based on X, Y, and Z, and I don't care, but I think we prepare our players that, I tell our team that I don't want them arguing with the official. I don't want any, back talk or anything like that with an official. If someone's going to do it, it needs to be me, because if someone's going to look like they're being a jerk, it needs to be me, not you. But and then I can handle, in my opinion, I can handle how I'm communicating with the official. I think sometimes, I don't want a player to get a reputation because they're always throwing their arms up or whining about a call or doing anything like that. We officiate in practice. Coaches officiate in practice. I am terrible. Sometimes I call it just because, like how I prepare our players. Sometimes I'll call it anytime a kid that I think overreacts, I will call every foul possible on them. We also in practice, like we'll do game scenarios, and it might be, 25 seconds less or left or 2 minutes left, any scenario like that. And we will make horrible calls on purpose to see how the team responds. And then we talk about that afterwards. I'm like, you guys got caught up on a bad call. Do you think there's not any bad calls in basketball? In basketball, my saying, I say to our players is, guys, you got 5 fouls. If everyone was perfect, you would get 1 foul. That's it. So you got 5, and they're not calling half of them that you fouled. So, it all works out somewhere, but we make them do that. And then I think the thing that bothers my players the most is if I feel like we're getting chippy about calls or anything like that, or even if they're doing it to us in practice, we just give them a whistle. And I did it last year. I did it twice to 2 people, and they're like, I don't ever want to do that again. They thought they were just officiating that drill. I kept them out of the rest of practice, and they officiated the whole practice. They were livid. And I'm like, you can make a choice. You can be a player and official. You just have to decide which one you want to be. So we do those type of things in practice because that's part of the mental aspect of basketball. It's not just I'm going to miss shots. How do I respond after I've missed a shot? How do I respond after I've fouled or gotten fouled? It's how do I respond after I perceive that a call was called against me and it wasn't the right call? It's all part of the game. And I think if you respond to it correctly, it's better. But yeah, I love giving them a whistle in practice. They hate it and I love it.
I think that's great though, because that's true. Unless you're in that situation, you have no idea. And I think that's, good, bad officials, a lot of it comes with experience, because you have to figure out you have to fail in order to figure out how to not fail. My biggest failure was on ESPN in a national championship game. I screwed something up. I had 3 FIFA people in my ears saying, hey, I don't know what happened. I have no idea. And I'm like, okay. So I restarted the play, and sure enough, the replay, right after I restarted the play, I was wrong. And, I got banned from, I can't remember what conference, and Notre Dame never had me back, and Florida State hated me. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like right. I screwed it up, but people don't understand, like it's that pressure. So let me ask you this. And you say, you referee in practice and you don't like it. Tell me why. What do you feel like? How do you feel when you're in that situation?
Well, when I'm officiating, I Trust me, I don't do it proper. I'm not getting at the right angle. I don't care. I don't care who the ball went out on sometimes. I can't even see it. There's times like as an official, I think, and we all get mad at it, is when in basketball, when you're standing, and I know we have 3 officials, but it's not easy getting all 3 on the same page. That's a whole nother dynamic that I'm glad I don't have to deal with. But when you are standing underneath the basket or right there and the ball is tipped out right where you are, you've got a lot of arms and legs and everything. I'm like, I have no idea who that went off of. And I'm like, I just make a call. And they're like, it went off of. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I called it this way. But the reason I'm not a good official. And I don't know if I, as a coach, could handle the constant in your ear, somebody yelling about a bad call. This coach I'm like, what are they doing? They're down there yelling at them. And now I think they're getting a call. So now I've got to start yelling at them. So I think I can get a call. And that's that mental dynamic of, I'd be like, okay, everybody, that's it. You're all out of the gym. I'm just working with these, 10 players on the court right now. So, as much as I do appreciate officials, I know some of them probably don't think I do, but the ones that they've had and been around a long time, like they know I'm going to get on them about stuff, but they also know, I'm the first one that's going to go, well, crap, I saw that on video and I could have sworn you were wrong in that game. And nope, I was wrong. Oh, well.
It's funny. I love it. I absolutely love it. And, I'll just tell you another story too. So, and it is about relationships, right? A lot of it's about that relationship, the mutual respect. And again, if you're making an effort, if you're trying, if the official's working hard, they have the right, just the right tools, in their toolbox. I think that's all important. But I was refereeing at Air Force Academy, and friend of mine, the coach, Larry Friend, his name was Larry friend of mine for years and years and years. He was 100% sure that he saw a handball in the box and I should have called the penalty kick. And I kept saying, Larry, I'm right there. It's not a PK. My AR's in my ear telling me it's not a PK. So he wouldn't feed me after the game. He wouldn't give me pizza after the game. He wouldn't give me my pizza. And I said, Larry, listen to me. I'm truly, and he go, I don't need your damn pizza. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to eat pizza. I don't care. I don't need your food. I don't, whatever. I said, just send me the video. And I said, just look over the video, send me the video. I said, if I'm wrong, then I'll buy you dinner next time I'm there. So he calls me and he goes, hey, Karen, there's no need to send the video. And he said, I'll have a gift certificate for whatever you can eat anywhere you want.
It happens, but in the heat of the moment, and there's pressure on coaches, there's pressure on players, there's pressure on officials. And I think that's why the mental aspect is so important, because you have to handle the pressure. And it doesn't mean that your call was correct or incorrect. You have to handle the pressure. If you can't, you're not going to make a good official. If you can't, you're not going to make a good basketball coach.
So besides the things that you've told me already, what do you do personally to handle pressure, or tell your team to do to handle pressures? And maybe that's something that could carry over into how officials handle pressure.
Yeah, well, with our team, I mean, we do some things. We work actually with Lindsay Ross Stewart and with a sports psychologist, and we try to do different team building things with her. And then also, I know she works individually with some of our players, because some people handle it great and others don't. And sometimes it's maybe they come in as a freshman and they just expectations and everything overwhelms them. And then as they grow with experience, they learn to handle different scenarios. But we do everything from, working with Lindsay Ross Stewart. I've got some of our players that work with Doug Pollock. He's a FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and he goes through different devotionals, but basically, keeps them trying to center it on playing for the audience of one, so you don't get wrapped up in everything else. But it just depends on individuals and how they deal with it. We've had a lot of players will put, something around the wrist and snap it, to move on. I don't do it well, but one of the things that I try to do is, if I feel myself getting caught up, I truly believe I can't get caught up and yell at officials and focus on what they're supposed to be doing and actually focusing on coaching my team. I'm not talented enough to coach them through everything. And and coach the officials through everything. So for me, sometimes when I see that happening or feel that happening, I just try to take a step back and then get my focus where it needs to be.
That's
But
great.
I think sports psychology is awesome. I think, maybe many years ago, people might have thought that was that mental piece, that's taboo. That means you're not strong. That means you're not going to be good. And that is so far from the truth when people realize from, amateur through professional sports and everything in between, that the great ones usually work with sports psychologists and usually work on different mental aspects of the game. I think that stigma has totally gone away and people realize the value of it.
I agree. And again, one of the reasons for putting this platform together, this website together, because I think people are starting to realize the value of it. I think that, too many officials try to address things during the game and they can't. They just have to, put it out of their mind, go back, and afterwards we'll learn, we'll grow, we'll develop, doing all these things.
Well, and for officials, the double whammy to this is technology. That video is out there, and it is not just out there for, before it was just coaches or players, we would see it. Oh, that video, those clips of a bad call or anything like that, or even for players, the bloopers or whatever, those videos are out there on Twitter. They've hit before you've gotten the car or gotten your pizza. That stuff is out there. So just being able to accept that you're not going to be perfect and being okay with it. If you know why you're officiating, or why you're coaching, or why you're playing, you'll be okay with the mistakes. If you're trying to be a perfectionist and never, and not be able to handle messing up, I would not go into officiating. But if you're willing to, put in the work hard, have the mechanics, have the right attitude, go about it the right way, I think it's great. But it's not for the weak people. It's just not.
No, I agree with you 100%. 100%. Yeah, it is not. There are people who are cut out to do this, and I think even with sports, even with athletes, with coaches, because you are going to fail. There are failures. You can't win every game. You can't play your best every game. You're not going to be technically perfect every game. You're not going to make the right calls. There's so many things in sports. You're not necessarily. You can't be, if you're always up here, if you're always 100%. Where is there to, then there's no competition. There's got to be growth and development through it. So, and one last question. So, with keeping all that in mind, what do you think potentially, or what could motivate officials to continue to referee or continue to officiate, just like what, in face of failure as a coach, you maybe not win every game. What motivates you to come back?
I think for me as a coach, it's the love of the game. I think for an official, it has to be the love of the game. You have to, we all have to understand officials are there. We can't have games without officials. They're there because they love the game. They love the sport. They're giving back. I think that, it's not, if someone might say, well, it's the monetary value. If I'm going to get paid more, I'll do it. No, you won't. That's not why. If that's why you're doing it, you're doing things for all the wrong reasons. I think it's just the fact that, you want to give back. And I think for officiating as well as coaching and playing is, if yesterday wasn't my best effort, that's okay, because I'm going to be better today. I think every time you step out on the field or on the court, you're just trying to be better than you were the day before. And if that's what you're going after, then you can live with the results. And yes, there will be some struggles, but life's a struggle. So, get over it. If you want to keep living, just get over it and move on. But I think the struggle is understanding that you're like, you just stated that you botched one of your worst calls or whatever, but understanding you're okay. That's part of the game, and life will go on. And it doesn't mean you're a bad official because someone doesn't like you. There will be distractors there's distractors in every aspect of people's lives. You can talk about it in sports. There's people that don't want you to do well because they want to strive above you. And I think it's just the thing that keeps bringing you back is make sure your support system is a support system that wants to lift you up instead of pull you down. And that will keep you coming back time and time again.